We're good?
Welcome everybody. We're so happy to see so many of you here today. I do want to point out real quickly that there are still some tools that were donated by Red Cross. So at some point when you leave, if you want to grab any gloves or anything like that, please feel free. And my name is Stacy Matlock. I can't actually wear two hats, so I wore my t-shirt because I'm a volunteer firefighter. I also work with the New Mexico Forest and Watershed Restoration Institute. They have a table right back here. I'm their communications coordinator, which means I like to talk a lot. So, we're going to get started here very quickly. I just want to say first, because I see a lot of folks here. Oh, there it is. Okay. We have our sheriff, San Miguel County Sheriff here. Welcome, we're glad to see you. We have County Commissioner Max Trujillo here, and we have a lot of other folks. So we hope that we'll be able to give you some practical answers to as many questions as we can. I want to recognize all of the law enforcement, all of the incident command folks who come from all over the country, as you all well know, to try to stop this fire. And I also want to say that no one here, you guys deserve to be angry. Those of you who lost your home, lost property, but the folks here are here to try and help you. So if you can just remember that, they are not the ones to blame. They're here to do whatever they can. It's not going to be everything you need, but it's a start, we hope. I also want to recognize your volunteer firefighters, many of whom are in this room. There are some who some of them, 5 of them, lost their homes in this fire. And some of them spent as many as sometimes 30 hours at one stretch fighting this fire when it flew up in their neighborhoods. And not just them, but other neighbors in some of our valleys who had backhoes and dozers, and they went out and dug fire line without anybody asking them. They just knew what to do, and they went out and did it, and they saved a lot of homes. So we thank you if you are watching. So to start this off, we actually are going to hear from a couple of your volunteer firefighters who did lose their homes. And we'll start with Marcy and Manuel Silva and their kids who are here with them supporting them.
Thank you, everyone. My name is Marcy Silva. I am a new recruit to the fire department. I joined about 3 months ago. I do have a fire background. As Stacy said, we did lose our home. Honestly, we lost our home April 22nd. That was the day that it made a 14-mile run. I have 2 young kids that we have to think about, and so me and my husband and the kids evacuated. We were getting reports throughout the night that our house had burned, our family hadn't stayed behind. But honestly, yes, I'm sad, I'm hurt, I'm angry that we did lose our house. But the way I look at it, and my son's been the positive one in all of this, we have each other. Our family is healthy, our family is safe. We did have to evacuate several times. Every time where we kept evacuating to, we did eventually get evacuated from there as well, until we were finally able to get home, or what's home now. We are currently living with our in-laws, or my in-laws, but we're back out here in the ranch, and we do plan to rebuild or buy something to put back in there. This is home. My husband was born and raised up here, and so it is home for us. My kids have been raised here, and this is all they know. We were all going crazy when we were in town, because we're not used to it. We're not used to the noise, everything going on. So once we could, we came back out to the ranch. Honestly, I do want to thank all the firefighters that did stay behind, and all the firefighters that came from around the country. Because I've met a few from Alaska that are here and all over the world. So also our law enforcement for everything they've been doing, keeping everybody safe and making sure that property that wasn't destroyed was being patrolled and not being looted or anything like that. So with that, thank you.
Thank you, Marcy. Did you want to add to what Marcy said? What they're not telling you is some of the tangible things they lost, that even though it's not near as important, of course, as their lives, they are simply irreplaceable, like a bedroom set made by Marcy's grandfather for her, and a bow that meant an awful lot to Manuel because of who gave it to him. You can buy another bedroom set, you can buy another bow, but it's simply not the same. Each of those items is embodied with your stories. So Daniel, did you want to come up? Okay, we have some shy firefighters here, not without a fire, but
Still in the angry mode.
okay. So we're going to move on now to Catherine Mann. She is my colleague at the Institute. She is a forest ecologist, and she also lives in Las Despensas at the end of the road, so yes, their place first. So Catherine, if you're ready.
Okay, so Stacy asked me to come and talk a little bit about forests, how trees might survive, how forests might recover, as long as like a list of many, many other things. And I have 20 minutes, so I'm going to try to touch on a lot of the topics that I know Stacy has heard are important to you all.
We're going to have to ask some of you to see if we can squeeze in so we can shut that door, otherwise you cannot see the screen where she has a great presentation. So if you guys can all squeeze down, there's room back there.
Okay, can everyone hear me? Yes? Okay, awesome. All right, so I'm going to go through just very briefly the place that I work and that a lot of our colleagues are from, a little bit about what we know about fire in this ecosystem, a little bit about how we can figure out whether trees, individual trees, have survived or are likely to survive, and then talk a little bit about what our expectations might be for what's going to happen to the forest in general. And then at the very end, I have some pictures that were taken at our property and some of the work that my husband and I have been doing, just to show you a little bit about what's possible. So again, Stacy mentioned we're from the New Mexico Forest and Watershed Restoration Institute. It's a very long name. We're one of 3 Southwest Ecological Restoration Institutes created by the National Congress in 2004 in response to those big wildfires that we were seeing in the late 90s, early 2000s. We are on the campus of New Mexico Highlands University. There are also institutes in Arizona, at Northern Arizona University, and in Colorado, at Colorado State University that we partner with. I'm not going to read our mission statement, but I just want to explain a little bit about what we do. We work to reduce the risk of catastrophic wildfire. That's what we were created to do, by collaborating with partners, engaging with communities, facilitating the transfer of information. So we aren't necessarily the folks out on the ground on individual private land properties, but we do a lot of nonpartisan third-party work with any organization, collaborative group. I'll have a list of those here in just a second. These are sort of the things that we do. We have technical and applied science programs, administrative programs, civic and community action programs, and I highlight that because a lot of you are probably familiar with the New Mexico Fire Viewer, which is something that our GIS program developed and maintained. These are some of the folks who work there. You probably know these folks. Most of them are local. Raimundo lives up in Gascon. Desiree lives in Sapello. Stacy and I are here. This is just a list of some of the partners that we work with. The purpose of this list is to highlight that we work with everyone. We're not owned by anyone, so we really are nonpartisan, neutral, third party. My job at the Institute is ecological monitoring. I'm the program manager there. And that means that we monitor the health of New Mexico's forests and vegetation. Right now, we have 300 project areas, that's all the little red speckles, and around 2,400 monitoring plots. We revisit those in 5-year intervals, and that helps us understand whether restoration treatments are working, how sites are responding to prescribed fire, how sites are responding to wildfire, and how long it takes maybe before treatments expire. So when we get into the other sections of this presentation, I just want folks to understand that this is my background, and some of the other things that I'm going to talk about I'm familiar with, but I'm not a specialist in, for example, how to save a residential tree. I can just tell you the best information that my colleagues have provided me on that. Okay? These are some of the things that we measure when we're out in the forest. Things like canopy cover, understory cover, ground cover, the amount of fuel loading in the forest, and information about what trees are there, how big they are, how many of them, how healthy they are. This is aerial imagery showing what mechanical thinning can do. This is from the Las Suspensas area, the 2810 Las Vegas Watershed Collaborative Forest Restoration Program project. This is in the area where the Hermit's Peak fire started, which is why I wanted to share this imagery. This is pre-treatment. If you can see that little blue dot, keep your eye on that. This is immediate post-treatment. So getting information about what that looks like on the ground is really what I do at the Institute. We can scale that up then to look at different forest types across New Mexico. Working with our partners in Arizona and Colorado, we can scale that up to learn landscape level trends across the Southwest. I mentioned this because one of our big projects that we are working on now after this fire is coordinating with the agencies to get back to the 21 sites that have burned so that we can see what we can learn from this. So for us, the opportunity to collect data and really learn using a scientific method about how our forest responded to this fire is something that we're excited about, and we're hopeful that it's going to be helpful to our community and to our managers going forward. Okay, I'm going to touch very briefly on what we know about fire in our ecosystem. When I talk about our ecosystem, I am talking mainly about ponderosa pine and Douglas fir. That's the mixed conifer, that's the forest that a lot of us near the station live in. Basically, we know that fire behaves differently in different forest types. These are some of the most common forest types. This was, again, developed by our sister institute, but it is true for New Mexico as well as Colorado. We also know this is a 700-year fire history reconstruction that was done in the Santa Fe Municipal Watershed. And so what you're looking at in this graph, the little black ticks, are fires that were recorded in the tree ring record. The important thing to note is in the red box, the last 150 years or so, there are a lot fewer ticks, basically demonstrating that fire suppression has had an effect, been very effective actually. So when we're looking at ponderosa pine, this diagram here on the left is what the historical fire regime would have looked like. When fire comes through, it burns the smaller trees, the bigger trees stay, they're able to provide a seed source, the forest regenerates. With fire suppression, when those fires don't come through as often, we're looking at what's happening here on the right. When a fire comes through, there are a lot more fuels, kills a lot more trees. Same sort of thing in the Douglas fir and the kind of higher elevation mixed conifer. Historically, we know that these forests burned less frequently than ponderosa pine, but still more frequently than they have in the last 100, 150 years. So again, when fire comes through, we're looking at stand replacing potentially catastrophic fire in those areas. Okay, I want to talk about individual tree survival after the fire. These are some of the ways that fire can kill a tree. You can kill the leaves or the needles, either by scorching them or just killing them with heat or fully consuming them. Can cause root damage, can cause damage to the trunk or branches that then compromise the entire tree. Can kill the inner tissue or cambium, or it can kill the buds of that tree. When you are thinking about the trees that are maybe on your property, one of the first things that you can look at is the percent of crown scorch. So both of the trees in this picture have 25 to 30% of crown scorch. We know that kind of the general rule of thumb, firs can survive 50% crown scorch. Pines can survive 75% crown scorch. And then there's this little table in the bottom, which is also available in some of the handouts that we have, that is specific to ponderosa pine, that lets you get a probability of survival based on the percent of crown remaining green on your tree. So if you're trying to decide when to cut a tree or not, this is potentially something that could be helpful. If you need a copy of that handout, Natalia can make sure that you get it. This is just sort of what that looks like. If the only thing that you're using to judge chance of survival is crown, the trees there on the left are likely to survive, the bottom is scorched, the top is not, and then the trees on the right are not likely to survive. Buds, when you're looking at buds, you will have to sort of get in up close to your tree. You can use your pocket knife, slice that bud open, figure out if it's still moist and green inside, or if it's dry and brown. Dry and brown means that the place where the tree can continue to grow has been killed. So even if the rest of the tree is there, that tree is not likely to survive as it's not able to produce new growth. In your pine trees, you need to kind of get in to the needles and be able to get to that bud to slice it open. And you can see in the picture that it's common that pine trees protect their buds. Even if there's a lot of scorch around them, they have all of those needles right at the end of the branch. Okay, if you're looking at the roots or the bark, the main stem, you need to kind of get down to the inside of the tree. The little yellow arrows are suggesting that you do this in multiple places. Trees can be girdled by heat, the same as they can be girdled mechanically. So if a tree's burned on one side, it's generally in better shape than if it's burned all the way around. So if you take samples using maybe your pocket knife, maybe a hatchet, depending on how big your tree is, to actually get down to that bark, you can see whether it is still moist, cream colored, or light green, depending on the kind of tree that you're looking at, versus kind of that brown crunchy that you're used to seeing on your firewood. If the tree has that brown crunchy inner bark on more than 2 places that you sample, then it's not likely to survive. So it's just pictures of the roots, and it's a reminder that even if the actual tree didn't necessarily burn, if the tree next to it burned, it could have cooked the roots underground, and your tree is not likely to survive. If you have a tree that you want to save, or trees, these are some of the best practices. Try to get water to your tree as soon as possible. Be aware that after a fire, your soil may be hydrophobic. So if you go out and you dump water next to your tree, it might not actually soak in. In that case, you may need to take a shovel or a hoe and scrape off a couple of layers, a couple of inches of soil there to get down to non-hydrophobic soil. As soon as you're able to do that, try to irrigate down to 12 to 15 inches deep, which is something like an hour of soaking if you have like a soaker hose next to your tree. And then repeat every hour or so, move that hose out a little bit until you're at the edge of the drip line of your tree, if this is a tree that you want to save. It's also recommended that you lightly mulch and crimp, which is basically pushing your mulch into the ground so the wind doesn't carry it away. And that you consider protecting your trees from sunburn. Trees, once they've been defoliated, can be very vulnerable to sunburn, and so you may want to consider wrapping them in flexible cardboard, cloth, or water-based paint. If you wrap your trees, remember to adjust the wrap every few months as your tree grows. And if you do use paint, don't use oil-based or petroleum paint, as that will actually damage the bark. If you have obviously dead material on your tree, you'll want to think about pruning that and removing it because it will attract insects. If you're trying to save a lot of pines and firs, Depending on what your options are, you may want to consider doing your pruning and material removal in the fall so that you're not attracting bark beetles to the tree. That's what I have on individual trees. I want to talk for a second about the forest. There's a little bit less that we as individuals can do as far as forest recovery. And so this is mostly about sort of setting expectations and knowing what we can look forward to over the next 10 years or so. There are lots of factors in forest recovery. These were some of the main ones. So fire severity, distance to seed source, particularly for ponderosa pine, elevation, and climate. And again, a lot of these are things that we're not going to be able to do a lot about, but I did want to touch on them. This is the bear burn severity map for the Gallinas and the Tecolote. As far as I know, there's not one available for us yet, but this is one way of getting an idea of fire severity. If you are a landowner in this area, the best way to get an idea of the fire severity is to go out to your land and look. So I have a couple of examples here.
What does that mean?
Fire severity?
So I'm guessing got 3 colors. What do they mean?
Yeah, so the red is high severity, yellow is moderate, and the green is unburned. And when the bear teams do their work, they're looking at soil burn severity. So they're not looking at vegetation. They initially start with satellite imagery to look at how the soil was impacted by the fire, and then they'll go out and ground truth and go over that. So generally, the higher the severity, the more difficult the recovery for that forest. So this is I'm going to show an example of a high severity in case you're looking at this on your own property. This is a before fire photo, and this is an after fire photo. So forest recovery, you can see that the ground is bare. All of the trees are dead. Some of them are just not there anymore. So recovery in this area is going to be more difficult than, this is a moderate severity, again, before the fire. And after the fire, you can see on those trees where the scorch marks stop. You can see where the brown needles stop. You can see that there's still green on the top. So that's more of a moderate severity burn. So that's just something to be aware of when you're thinking about what you can expect on your own property, especially with ponderosa. Expect that the higher severity areas will not come back as quickly as the lower or moderate severity burned areas. Okay. I want to touch on climate. I know this is something that's on a lot of people's minds. We've all seen areas near here where ponderosa pine burned, and all that's there now is gamble oak. This is something that there's a lot of research being done about. It's not completely well understood why this happens in some areas and not others. A lot of the research that we have on this came out of the Las Conchas fire, and we know that 86% of the areas that burned in the Las Conchas fire came back as something else. 38% of those came back as oak. There's what we know is that if an area has burned before and remained ponderosa, it's more likely to remain ponderosa after this fire. But aside from that, there's not a lot that we can do about this. It is important that we don't think of gamble oak as a fire break. It can have the same fire regime, the same kind of burn pattern as ponderosa pine. So even if your land is coming back, it's not necessarily a protective thing. That's really all that I'll say about oak. Distance from seed source, we talked about that. So this is, again, particularly for ponderosa, the further away an area is from a live ponderosa pine tree that is producing cones, the more difficult it is for new trees to grow there. Ponderosa has really big seeds, and it really depends on having those large mature trees able to drop those seeds. It's not so great at being wind dispersed or animal dispersed like some other plants are. So when you get more than like 150, 300 feet maybe from the edge of a living tree, you should maybe not expect natural regeneration of ponderosa pine in those areas, and you might want to consider something like planting. We also had elevation in our list of the major factors, and the thing to be aware of with elevation is that the lower elevation ponderosa pine tends not to come back as well as higher elevation. It's more stressed, particularly with drought, than the higher elevation ponderosa is.
Where did you say lower and higher? What numbers?
So think about the transition that we see like driving to town where it kind of gets into the junipers. So anything that might be growing in with juniper is less likely to come back than going up toward Gascon, where you have it growing in with Doug fir, white fir, that kind of thing. Okay, I want to talk just briefly about some of your options for standing dead trees. I know that a lot of us have a standing dead forest right now. So these options include, if you decided to leave your trees, you might be thinking about things like wildlife habitat, providing cover and soil nutrients. If you decide to remove your trees, you might be thinking about salvage logging. Depending on the severity, some of the logs, they still have commercial value, could be harvested. We have a note here about proper harvesting. You want to make sure that you're not causing additional damage to your soil. Everything's pretty vulnerable right now if you're out on your property with heavy equipment. A lot of the trees that burned are still usable as firewood. They may not be something that would sell well, but they would be something that you could use as individuals. You may choose to drop trees for the sake of hazard mitigation. Fire-killed trees are generally less stable than any other type of standing dead tree, and it is a little bit hard to predict when they come down. We know that most trees don't come down immediately. They come down somewhere in the 3 to 10 year range, and it depends on a lot of factors. The studies out there show anywhere from 70% of the trees come down to 70% of the trees are still standing, and it again depends on fire severity, the types of trees, all of that. The standing dead trees that you have on your property are still fuel, and so you may choose to remove them to reduce the risk of fire coming back to your place and burning those trees again. Bark beetle and other insects are a concern when you have a lot of very vulnerable trees, which our forests are already vulnerable right now because of the drought and now with the fire. It's important to be aware that once bark beetle gets into a tree, you can't save it. And if you see any of that little reddish brown holes, the best thing to do is to get it out of your property as quickly as possible so it doesn't spread to other trees. You could chip and mulch with the trees that you have, or you could consider log contour felling or using them for erosion control. There are probably other options out there. These are some of the most common things that folks might do with their standing dead. So with that said, I just want to show some pictures of what we've done with our standing dead and a little bit about what our experience has been. I'll go through this pretty quickly. This is our house. This is our house April 12th. This is, again, I'm sure this is the same for everyone. These are some of the agencies that we have talked to since April 12th. It's quite a long list. We are thankful for the help that everyone has given us. We've also, at times, felt like we've gotten different answers from everyone that we've talked to, and we've just not been sure how to proceed. I did include a copy of the FEMA decision letter that we received, which says that we are ineligible for assistance because our home is safe to occupy. So that kind of thing, we're a little bit stuck on moving forward with some of that. So instead, we've decided to put our time and energy into working on the land. So some kind of best practices that we've developed as we're thinking about that include documenting everything. So on our property, we flag certain trees and set up photo points. This is helpful for a couple of things. You should be aware that doing work on your land could possibly jeopardize eligibility for future funding, but we decided that it was worth us going ahead and doing the work, and so along with that, we decided to document everything. For that reason, as well as sometimes it feels like when you're working on the land, you're not getting anywhere, and having photos from 5 years ago that you can go back and look at again makes it clear that you are getting somewhere. What we did was we took our inspiration from nature. So this is a burned log that you can see has collected sediment and some of the pine needles that came down from those fire-killed trees. And that's telling us that things are moving. A lot of our movement so far has been wind-driven, but all of the ash, the sediment, the little flakes of bark coming off the ponderosa has been moving. We don't want that to leave our property. That's the soil that we have, right? And we're particularly concerned about what happens in the monsoons with the potential for material to leave the property. So we went around and we looked at areas where things were already collecting and used that to sort of identify priority areas. Areas of our property that were bare and where the pine straw and the sediment was already collecting. The next thing we did was get help from experts. I'm very fortunate to have colleagues who can help me with this. There are a variety of other programs available to provide technical assistance. But we got some help figuring out where it would be most effective to build structures and put our time and energy. Again, recognizing that right now we have a really short window ahead of monsoons, but the recovery that we're looking at is several years long. And so thinking about what we want to do this year, next year, and in the future. We used materials that were available on site. So in some places that was rock, in other places that was standing dead that we took down and limbed up. This is just a note to remind everyone to please prioritize safety when you're working on your property. Fire-killed trees do not behave like other trees, whether they're alive or dead, and they are different to cut down. They're different to limb up. They're sort of springy, they're very heavy, and it just takes a little bit of sort of calibrating yourself to how those trees behave when you take them down. This is just an example. So this is a log structure that is fully in contact with the ground. The kind of direction of flow when water might move is this way, and you can see there are little wooden stakes that we used from the branches to hold that in so that when the water comes through, that log doesn't get washed away. And then on the top side, the sort of upstream side, again, we don't have streams, so this is a wash, but the sort of upstream side is where we put some of the logging slash to just provide some extra ground cover. This is an example of another one. This was a little bit more involved. You can see that we had a dip here, and so we staked in a log and filled in behind it, again, hoping that it would trap sediment when the monsoons come. This is another one. Sorry about that. This is a log structure that was actually anchored in by other standing dead trees, rather than trying to put stakes in the ground, as well as rocks. These are some rock structures in an area where we didn't have a lot of trees. And then this is a combination of rock and log kind of moving upstream, again hoping that when the rains come, the sediment will be caught in several different places and we won't have flooding and debris flows and that kind of thing. And then again, important would be whatever you do, regularly inspect your structures, make sure they're working, and document what's happening. This is my last slide. These are some of the references that I used for the scientific material, and they're all pretty accessible and nice to read if anyone wants to learn more about any of these topics.
Thank you.
So, man, I learned a lot. I don't know about you guys. And by the way, whoops, I'm being told I have to read this way. I'm Teresa's way. This, by the way, we have two wonderful interpreters here doing sign language for our whole meeting, and that is fantastic. And we thank FEMA for sitting them and letting them sign the entire meeting. Yes, so actually several of us, we did some of the manual labor for Catherine and Jamie, and it is hard work, but if you want a good workout, just go offer to be one of these volunteer crews, and let me tell you, you get some muscle real quick. So, okay, so next we were going to have Gerald here from Canyon-Hermit, but how many of you got to watch his presentation last night? Quite a few of you. There's another one on Monday night. That is Gerald with the head of the Canyon-Hermit Soil and Water Conservation District. And he will be discussing the emergency watershed protection grant and program they have. There are some of the applications back here on this table. If any of the landowners want to pick one up, you can fill it out and then fax it or drop it off with Gerald. So he was not able to be here today, but they will be doing a second Zoom meeting on Monday evening at 6, and we will put the link up on our Sapello-Rociada Facebook page. We didn't expect it, but we're so happy he's here. because you guys are among the first to hear about it, the state debris removal program that they've got in place. This is Mr. Peter J. Garcia Sr. with New Mexico Environment Department.
Good afternoon, everybody. Buenas tardes. My name is Peter J. Garcia Sr. I'm with the New Mexico Environment Department Debris Management Task Force. And I don't know if some of you have seen the presentations I've been doing and the community briefings or not, but we finally have some good news for you. The program was officially rolled out last night. And we have some forms for you. So again, going back to the program, there's two options. Option one is the private property debris removal, or here in New Mexico we coined the phrase the full service program, full service debris removal program. And what that is you sign the right of entry form right here, and I have some in the back over there. They'll raise up. There's two members of the debris management task force back there, Mr. Cole Glenn Wright with Cal OES and Mr. Matt Lazel with EPA. And what that is, folks, is this right of entry is option one. You fill out the right of entry. And what that is that's giving the government permission to access your property in two phases. Phase one is the household hazardous waste removal and the asbestos containing removal, all of the bulk material. And the EPA goes in there and does that. Phase two is where the Army Corps of Engineers goes in and removes the remaining debris and has a certified arborist that goes in and determines if there's any hazard trees on their property that they will have removed. And any hazard trees determine that if they're going to be falling within 3-5 years from the date of the fire, and any tree that's going to be affecting the right-of-way, the public right-of-way, or your home. And with this program, you do not lose eligibility for managing your own forest, your own trees on your property. We're looking at hazard trees, okay? That's what we're looking at. Another thing, if you want to sift through the debris, you can do so safely. Please wear proper protective equipment, gloves, masks, long pants, shoes, whatnot, and you can sift through the debris to look for your valuables. That does not affect your eligibility. What affects your eligibility is if you begin to remove items from your property and dispose of that debris out of pocket cost. Again, option one, there's no out-of-pocket cost at all whatsoever. The first thing we've got to do is have you folks please allow the certified individuals, the people that know how to properly manage debris, go onto your properties and remove the debris. And that's by filling out the right of entry form. So option two is for you folks opt out of the program and you have to dispose of all of the debris on your property in accordance with all state and federal environmental laws and regulations. That's option two, and all of that comes out of pocket cost. What we're really pushing for, folks, is for you to choose option one, and the first step is to fill out the right of entry form so that you can submit these forms to your county office. You can also, so if you're in San Miguel County, you can turn them into San Miguel County offices or in Mora County offices. You can also access this form. Hopefully by this afternoon it'll go live on the internet, and the website is the New Mexico Department of Homeland Security website. You can fill this form out electronically, sign it, and there's an email address that you can email it to, and that'll go directly to us at the state. The counties are going to submit these forms. They're going to review these forms to assure that you guys, whoever fills it out is the property owner. They're going to send it to us, and from there we're going to get EPA to begin doing to look at the areas that have the most right of entry so that they can start focusing start at that point A. And the more right of entries that we have filled out, so that we can start cleaning up your residents, your neighbors, please spread the word and have them fill these rights of entries out so that we can help you folks get back to normal.
So what do you do if you've already started cleaning and you're almost done with all the metal? So what do we, as a private owner, what do we do with all the debris? Because the county's saying they're not off the dumpsters.
Leave the debris on your property. Do nothing with the debris. If you choose to opt into the program, please stop at where you are at that point. Please stop. Fill out these rights of entry, submit them fill them out, submit them as soon as possible, so that we can get these to EPA and to the Army Corps of Engineers, so that we can get these boots on the ground and get them mobilized, so that we can begin cleanup. Yes, sir.
Is option one only if your house burned? What if your house survived but you lost a couple of dollars?
So that's another thing. You may be eligible for option one if you did lose outlying structures. As long as that structure was larger than 120 square feet, you could be eligible for the program. The best option here, folks, is fill out this form, and we will determine EPA and Army Corps of Engineers will determine on a case-by-case basis. Say you didn't lose your residence, but you may have hazard trees on your property. Fill this form out. Army Corps of Engineers will go in there with a certified arborist to determine if you have any hazard trees. The best thing, folks, is to fill this form out, and we will look at it. EPA will look at it. Army Corps of Engineers will look at it to determine what we can do for you. That's the best thing, is fill this form out and submit it as soon as possible. We want to go in here. Yes, sir.
So once we get the paperwork and everything in, how soon can we expect to see the removal taking place?
So again, it's just rolled out this morning. We're hoping to get EPA mobilized here within the next couple of weeks. And that would be the boots on the ground to begin debris removal. So please spread the word in your neighbors, your communities, that the more rights of entries that we have in a generalized area, that's where EPA and Army and Corps of Engineers are going to go. And the reason for that is logistics, so that they're not jumping around all over the county, so that they're more effective, if you will. They can clean a whole slew of a neighborhood instead of jumping around. That's the best. Yes, ma'am.
Is that for secondary homes or just?
Regardless if it's your primary or secondary residence, this program applies. And please remember that if you signed up, this is a different program than signing up with FEMA or Red Cross. If you want debris management on your property, you have to fill this form out. Yes, sir.
Peter, does insurance have anything to do with this? If we fill out that form and we had insurance, but the house is burned completely?
So with insurance, typically you may or may not have what's called a debris removal clause in your insurance. So it's a certain amount of money. We'll say $10,000, $15,000, whatever the money amount is, the monetary amount. That money has to be set aside, and that money goes to the counties. Okay? So say you have a $15,000 debris removal on your policy, but it's going to cost $40,000 to clean up your property. The remaining amount that's in excess of debris removal, that you don't have to pay that as homeowners. The federal government is picking up that money, that charge, and also possibly the state. It's just, we don't want duplication of services. Duplication, that's the reason for that money going to the county.
If we want to stop erosion on our property, can we have those trees dumped into arroyo, or do you take off of them, or what?
So with the hazard trees, the Army Corps of Engineers are going to manage those trees. They are going to manage those trees. So if you want, say for instance, you want to have your debris removed, but you don't want the hazard tree removed, you can't do that. It has to be, if you choose option one, it has to be the debris removal and also the hazard trees. Yes, sir.
I think our question was the hazard trees, can some of those then be laid down in arroyos for watershed protection?
So again, with the Army Corps of Engineers, they're going to be doing watershed protection and watershed management, and they'll determine what activities need to be done on your property. So I can't give you a definite answer if they will leave it or if they'll remove it, but they will make the determination on watershed management per site. It's on a case-by-case basis.
Will they remove just trees that were burnt that aren't going to be healthy anymore?
So again, say for instance, you didn't lose a residence or you didn't lose an outlying structure, but you possibly had hazard trees on your property. Fill out this form, and on a case-by-case basis, the Army Corps of Engineers will determine if that's a hazard tree, and they will remove hazard trees. So again, it's not just because you didn't lose a residence, or an outlying building. If you have hazard trees, they'll make, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers will make that determination. And we're really pushing at the state level and the federal level for you folks to please fill out and share with your neighbors, your community, your friends, your family to choose option 1. Let the certified individuals that know how to manage this waste, this debris properly. I mean, you folks have already been through enough. You know, give us that monkey in our back. Yes, ma'am.
So the trees that are very close to the roadways, are those going to be removed anyway?
Yes, those are hazard trees. They affect the right of way. Those will be removed. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Does the owner have to be on site when this is done? Once
You-
you sign this?
You don't have to, but you can be if you want.
Okay.
But what's going to happen is, if you decide you want to be on site, of course they're going to rope off. EPA is going to rope off. U.S. Army Corps of Engineers are going to rope off the area, your lot, your site, for safety purposes, for your safety. And you can be there if you want to view what's going on. Yes, sir.
What if you get rejected on option 1?
What do you mean by getting rejected on option 1, sir?
Well, if you fill out option 1, but they say, we're not gonna help you with the removal, what happens then?
The removal of what?
The debris.
So again, we're looking at if more than likely, sir, you will not get denied on option 1. Our thing is if you have begun debris removal, please stop at where you're at right now. Stop completely, fill out this right of entry so that we and the state and federal level government can go in there and properly remove this debris. And again, you can sift through your debris for valuables, that's fine. Please do it in a safe manner. And that will not affect your eligibility. What we don't want is for you to start removing debris or making piles of metal and just leave everything as is, but you can't sift through the debris. Yes, sir.
Will we be notified as to when they're gonna come, maybe a day before, or a little bit of time for us to get to the point?
So we haven't worked out those logistics yet, sir. Again, this program we just got.
Well, you've had it all day, you know,
Well, some of us are working on a lot less sleep than others, so, but it's a continual evolving program. And I'll tell you, the folks at the Debris Management Task Force, which is comprised of your local, your county officials, the state, the federal, the Cal OES, the governor's office decided to bring them in and help them out. And so that you know, I'm not management, I'm a worker bee way at the bottom of the totem pole, folks. So they brought me in to help out, to assist, and I'm a native northern New Mexican in the area, and I put myself in your shoes, and I sincerely offer my condolences on your losses. I really do. My thoughts and prayers are out to you folks. And that's why we're asking that you put the monkey on our backs at the state. I mean, we're public servants. I'm your public servant. And we want to provide that to you. Yes, sir, Sheriff Lopez.
Maybe you could touch on the process of how they separate the debris and why it's such a big deal, with all the EPA regulations and everything.
Yes, thank you, sir. So the reason, as Sheriff Lopez was saying, so on your property is what's called household hazardous waste. That's hazardous waste that here in the state of New Mexico we have no landfill for hazardous waste. And that's stuff that's going to make you really sick. It's going to affect your health, the health of the environment, contaminate the water, the soil, all that stuff. So that's why it's important that the folks, EPA, they go in there and clean up all this household hazardous waste. It's going to be collected in a mass amount. So typically, in small amounts of your residence, you can take household hazardous waste to a local landfill, the transfer station, and they handle it as such. But this is a mass amount, a massive event. That's why we have EPA out here, so that they can manage it, mitigate it, and remove it properly and dispose of that household hazardous waste property at a landfill located outside of the state of New Mexico. Again, looking at, we don't want to contaminate the soil, the water, the watershed. We don't want to put yourselves at risk. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
Is it safe to sift through asbestos-containing materials?
No.
Since it's been made friable, I'm thinking it may.
No, it is not safe, sir. It is not safe. That's why we ask that you use masks, N95 masks, gloves, and long-sleeve pants, and it's not safe. Typically, I would not recommend that you sift through any asbestos-containing material because you can have those fibers enter your body.
Yeah, I think they go through N95s even. I would think that you'd have to use respirator.
Yes, you have to use a natural respirator. So, I mean, I can't tell you what to do or what not to do on your property. I can recommend that your health is not worth you acquiring that disease years and years and years from now.
Yeah.
And that would be asbestosis, mesothelioma. I mean, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. So I recommend that if you feel that there is asbestos on your property, do not sift through the material. Recommend. I'm not telling you not to, but highly recommend do not do that. Yes, sir.
Someone had asked a while ago about being notified when they were coming into your area. Let me just offer a suggestion that we could establish points of contact for given areas. The RV park, Panda Ray, Sapio could have a general point of contact that the state could get a hold of, and then they could work with the people of their community.
And thank you for that. Yes, so what I can do is the debris management task force meets daily. Well, Monday through Friday, but the work doesn't stop on the weekends. As you can see, I'm here today. So are the debris management task force. We worked last night to the wee hours of the night and this morning. So the work doesn't end over the weekend. It's just our meetings don't occur over the weekend. But I will take all of these questions, all of these recommendations to the debris management task force on Monday morning and let them know this, our recommendation, so that we can have points of contact for certain villages and areas or communities so that we can notify them, hey, we're going to be in this area this such and such a day. And getting back to Sheriff Lucas's continuation of the reason for the removal of the debris, so we covered household hazardous waste. Now, asbestos-containing material, and that leads us up into that question that this gentleman just inquired on. That is some really nasty stuff. And you can get that into your body, and it won't affect you today, it won't affect you tomorrow, it can affect you years and years from now. So you're wondering why you can't breathe, why you become sick. That's what it is. Asbestosis, mesothelioma, those fibers cling to your lungs, and that's where you can't breathe. So that's the reason that asbestos-containing material is properly abated and removed and mitigated by a qualified, certified individual, and it goes to a permitted landfill where they can accept asbestos. Yes, sir.
Could you give them some examples of other types of household hazardous waste, insecticides, various things like that you may also encounter?
Yeah, so insecticides, pesticides, lead-based paints, your propane tanks, the propane tanks that may have burned or partially burned.
Batteries.
Batteries, that's another thing, batteries. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, in 1969, the federal government banned asbestos from all construction, or unless I was misinformed at the time. Like, we misinformed on a lot of stuff. Is that true or not?
I don't know when asbestos, I'll be honest with you, sir, I don't know when asbestos was banned from building material, but it is banned from building material. So if you have an older home, thank you, sir. So if you have an older home, you may have asbestos, you may have lead paint in the paint that was painted. Mercury is another thing.
So the government did ban asbestos, but what happened is asbestos still comes in building materials that are shipped from China and Mexico. And so you can go to Home Depot right now and get joint compound that's made in China or made in Mexico, and it still has asbestos in it. And so that's what happens is that's why the state laws around the country, you still have to have your homes tested, even if you built your home yesterday. You still have to have your homes tested if you're removing any drywall or if you have any mastic adhesive, anything like that. You still have to have your homes tested, even though asbestos has been banned it was banned to be made in America. But there's still products that are shipped in from overseas.
Yes, and again, I wasn't aware of that, but I do know that as a certified asbestos inspector myself, if you do have to have removal or demolition, that's why you're required to do the asbestos assessment.
Yes.
And then, of course, moving forward, the other debris material goes to a permitted landfill. What we don't want, folks, is for people to start digging holes or on their property and burying stuff, because what it's gonna do, it's gonna affect you in the future. It's gonna affect your neighbors, it affects your watershed, it's gonna contaminate your ground, the water. So that's why option one, the state and federal government is gonna go in there, put the monkey in our back to properly remove, abate, and dispose of all the debris on your property. Yes, ma'am.
Can any of the roofing metal be recycled and used by the homeowner?
No. So if you have the debris, what's going to happen is the recyclable material, the metal, your white goods, dryers, washers, refrigerators, whatnot, concrete, all of that's going to get recycled. So not everything's going to be landfill. There are things that are going to be separated, source separated. They are going to be recycled. And all of those items are going to be kept track of, because the contractors that come on board or that are hired by the Army Corps of Engineers, they're going to put those tickets in, if you will, and that'll determine because that's a profit for them, that's less money that they'll get on their contract, if you will. Because, I mean, there doesn't want to be a duplication of payment, if you will. That's the reason why, for you folks as the homeowners, if you receive or have a damage or debris removal on your homeowner's insurance, that's why that money needs to go to the county, the state.
So folks, I'm so glad that Mr. Garcia showed up to give the presentation. I'm afraid we do need to move along a little, but he's
Yes.
around.
Thank you for your time. I'll be back there in the table. Cole, can you raise your hand there? I'll be back there with Cole. Where did Matt hide on me?
He's out here.
Oh, Matt, okay, Matt's back there hiding. But I'm over there wearing a white cowboy hat, and hopefully, anyhow, and hopefully I will continue to be on the community briefings, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And thanks to Sheriff Lopez and all the folks, the firefighters, the incident management teams, thank you for all your work. Prayers, thoughts and prayers go out to you. And I will continue to be on there as long as they'll have me providing additional information. And please share the word with your friends. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm so excited that the Environment Department showed up to give that presentation. And now, Commissioner Trujillo and Sheriff Lopez, would you all like to talk a little bit about maybe what the county is thinking of law enforcement in terms of flooding and sort of the preparations you all are making to figure that out in case there are going to need to be evacuations?
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Max Trujillo. I'm the County Commissioner for District 3. This district, this is Sheriff Chris Lopez, Chief Andrew Duran from our fire department, and Benito Romero from our Public Works office in Las Vegas. So I just wanted to, assure everybody that the meetings that Peter has talked about and Stacy has talked about, and you see our sheriff every night on television, and you may not see me or the chief or Benito every night, but I want you to be rest assured that we have not stopped representing you in any capacity, way, shape, or form. We are having daily meetings at all levels with our congressional delegation, with the governor's office, with all of these departments, with Red Cross and EPA and FEMA and everybody else, soil and water conservation districts. So we're coordinating a huge effort to try to save what we can, prepare you for what's coming, and all while ourselves in the middle of this disaster with you. My family lost a house in the Port Benito. All my neighbors up there, their houses burnt down. So Chris's house, fire completely encompassed his property in Mineral Hill. So we know what you're going through. We're here with you. We're making sure that that you're informed on the programs that are coming. Nothing happens overnight, especially in a disaster, and surely not at the pace that we need it to happen. We're dealing with government entities, and while they have all the resources to help us, and it just doesn't happen at the pace that we want it to. We're talking about watershed protection now, preparing for floods and debris flows and things like that that are certainly coming. Some areas will be hit worse than others. So we're already in those conversations and trying to do some preemptive mitigation for that, and trying to save households that didn't burn but might get taken out by a flood. All of those things are in motion. From my personal standpoint, I've seen what has happened to our people of San Miguel County, of Mora County, now of Taos County. Colfax County had their own disaster. In 2000, the Cerro Grande fire burned in Los Alamos. The federal government came in and essentially bought people homes. It was just like us. They had hundreds of homes that were destroyed by this inferno. But what makes us any different than those people? Same origin. The fire started not by any of your fault, not by my fault. It was the same origin as the Cerro Grande fire. And I am not calling anybody out. I am not criticizing, or it's already happened. But the government needs to treat the people of San Miguel and Mora County and Taos County and Colfax County the same way they treated the people from Los Alamos County in the end. And that is what I personally am going after. That is become my life mission. I know it's not going to happen tomorrow, maybe not even this year, maybe not next year, but it is going to happen.
What can we do as a community to help you get? Yeah, I agree. What can we do?
Well, I think we all need to sing the same song. We all need to say, none of us asked for this disaster. Our lives are okay. Yes, we were in a drought. Yes, but we've been through this. We know how to manage our land. We know what to do. We've been here for 500 years. We didn't ask for this disaster, but it happened. So my suggestion would be for all of our community together, we have the same mantra, if you will, that we deserve no less than the richest county in the state when it comes to restitution and compensation. That is what we need to adopt in our minds, and the words that we speak is that we of Sapello and Tierra Monte and Rociada, we are no less than the people in Los Alamos. And that's my personal mission. And I invite the community to join with me and to say that every chance you get. Yes, sir.
I've got a question about restoring forest that's burnt and bringing back livestock. I mean, not livestock, but wildlife. I mean, sections that don't have burn, they're overloaded with starving deer and elk. And we can look and see 25-year-old burn scars that are scrub up that nothing can get through. What can we do, even as volunteers, to get trees to plant and do something to mitigate? Because for those of us that are stuck here or want to stay here, you know, in 8 years, if you replant, you can see something beautiful. If not, you see the scar.
Sure. So that's, again, probably cooperation with the game and fish, for one thing, to at least sustain some of this wildlife that is in just as bad shape as we are. But these, you know, these groups, soil and water conservation, all of these organizations, they are establishing plans as we speak for reforestation, and bringing back the beauty of our place. It's horrible, and you know, right over here, this hill, it's the same thing in Gallinas Canyon. Over the other hill, it's the same thing in Mineral Hill area. North of us, south of us, in every direction.
Fire is raging right now.
I know it is. I saw that calling. But I mean, we rest assured that we're not going to let this thing rest. And all of those things, reforestation, watershed protection, all of those things, they have to be done.
I have a question. What is San Miguel Emergency Management doing right now? What are they planning on doing? I mean, I've called them. They don't answer the phone. I just want to know, what are they working on?
Sure.
Nobody's informing the public on what we should be doing.
Yeah. So they've been busy, and it's not, you know, the emergency management of San Miguel. It's not like a staff of 20 people. It's one guy. And we have one guy from the state, Travis Martinez, who's also helping with emergency management. They set up, you know, a center, an emergency management center, and they may not be answering every single call, but they are busy, you know, they're busy with people who have been evacuated. You know, they're trying to find them, you know, locations for midterm, long-term. They're planning for the displaced to have somewhere to live, not just when the fire's put out, because nobody can build for another year or 2 years maybe. So they're very, very busy right now, and I'm sure that our sheriff can you know, kind of update you as, because they work very close together, and because of evacuations and it's a fluid situation, and you know, there's just a lot going on right now behind the scenes that you know, you may not be seeing, but rest assured it's happening. And we're trying to make sure that everybody's going to be looked after.
Maybe as a community leader, maybe you could speak on our behalf as far as like our land that is burned, and we would like to reseed it, but reseed it with something that is useful for our livestock and for the wildlife, because I understand that they were reseeding, but they're putting something in there, something that will hold the soil to stop erosion. But you know, we live here, we enjoy the wildlife. You know, like on our property, my son has cattle and all the pasture burned. And so the hay is very expensive, and so we want to replant, but we would like to have some seed that is useful not only for our livestock but also the wildlife.
Right. First off, I want to thank everybody for coming. This is great, and it's a good time to inform on stuff that's going on, as you've already been hearing, and also to kind of gather and have these kind of discussions and kind of really get that realness of what's going on and what everybody's going through, the struggles. As I look out here and I see a lot of people that I've grown up with and known for several years, and you know, and just the pain that we went through over the last 2 months. But more specifically, we're dealing with the biggest crisis that New Mexico's ever seen. It's enormous, you know, in the devastation, the loss of communities, the loss of property, the loss of natural resources. You know, so in order to really deal with it and to get all these organizations together to really put a plan in place, it takes a little bit of time. And it's not moving as fast as we all want to see it. I can tell you, I can speak a lot on a personal level for property that we've lost as well. you know, I ask you just to have patience as the commissioner's telling you, you know, I mean, I'm on pretty much 60 days straight, and I can tell you every day we're either dealing with the disaster or we're dealing with planning and meetings and preparation and also in action. And so, you know, I'm getting a lot of questions right now about natural resources, about farming and ranching and post-fire help. I can tell you on the second floor at the county offices on Thursday from 10 to 3, there's going to be a meeting specifically to discuss that with the USDA and with our partners from Homeland and our state emergency operations center. So that will be taking place at the county second floor where we have our county commission meetings from 10 to 3 on Thursday. So we'll be able to answer some questions for that. But like again, I just want to reiterate that, you know, in order to put all of this stuff in place and to have a cohesive plan that's going to be able to answer a lot of questions, because if you've heard me speak the last several days, I've been talking about, you know, just the difficulty of really navigating through all the pieces that are involved with this, all the entities that are helping, and really being able to formulate some really strong answers so that way when we go out to report to you, there is a plan and we are able to provide action. And just in the report you heard for the debris removal, several weeks of planning and efforts in terms of how we can best provide that service to the community. So that way it's not fragmented, that way we're not, case in point is, I've been really stressing on the point that people want to clean up their stuff. You know, they want to start moving forward. But in order to do that, we have to be able to have a plan that we know is going to work. So we don't have contractors coming out here and providing you a service and taking your money and then going and burying that stuff in somebody else's yard, and then we're going to have to deal with it. You are going to have to deal with it in your watershed later on. So those are just, you know, those are just a couple of little points that I'm bringing out now that I've been hearing the conversations. And that's just one piece. We're still, I can tell you, my office, the Emergency Operations Center, we're still dealing with the fire on the Peco side. We're still dealing with the communities over there, and you know, I'm still dealing with people upset with me because I'm out of their homes. And so that's another very important piece that I want to bring up right now is we have the incident that we're dealing with, the crisis, the fire itself, and then we have our then we also, now we're working on kind of picking up the pieces and trying to get things back to some kind of normalcy. And then we're also working on the, you know, flood preparedness and mitigation, which we know is coming now for monsoon season. And so there's several different aspects and then on top of that, we're also trying to come up with plans to provide more resources to those that have lost their homes and have been displaced. You know, and that's probably, it all takes time, and it all takes planning and a lot of different agencies and efforts to make something like that happen. And so, as right now we moved into the debris removal piece. Now we're getting conversations for several weeks on what it's going to look like in terms of trying to bring some kind of maybe FEMA housing or trailers or just different options that we're looking at that we can best serve the communities. And then even looking at things so intricate as I look out here and I look at all of you, and I really see people who aren't going to want to live in town in a FEMA house. They're going to want to be on their properties, making it what it was, what they know it as. And so those are just all pieces that us as government are really looking at. And I can tell you, our OEM manager, he hasn't had any days off. Chief has, I think, maybe a couple. Our public works guys, they've been working tirelessly as well. So when the commissioner says that they're out there serving, they're out there serving. I can guarantee you that you might not always get the answers that you want. I know for me, I depending on what's going on, I work sometimes all night. I went several nights without sleeping, but also during the days like now when I'm able to end a little bit early, I stay up late making calls that I wasn't able to answer during the day. So you know, I'm very proud to say that I work with a very diligent group of people. As the commissioner was mentioning, there's not a lot of us, so but the state has been able to provide us a lot of assistance. We did have the OC going. That's been a little bit whittled down, and now we're working on revamping that and picking up those efforts again. And more importantly, I know Chief brought a bunch of documents for you all to start looking at in terms of after the fire, flood mitigation and flood preparedness. And that's something that I really, really want to kind of stress on right now. I mean, there's a lot of us that don't live in the floodplain, but when you deal with these kind of catastrophic events, and as you heard from the presentation that was done earlier about burn severity maps, they're still being developed for this area here. We do have the flood severity maps for the Tecolote watershed and the Gainas watershed, but we also have the Sapello, we have Maestas and those areas which we're really concerned about as well. And when I talk about that, depending on how high severity burn occurred in those areas, it's going to depend on how severe the floods are going to be. And I know that there's some areas that were burned severely, and so when you have those severe type of floods, those severe types of fires, it really loosens up all the vegetation, and then the water's going to come down a lot harder than it would any other time. So with that, I know some of the initial reports that we're seeing is that we're looking at the potential for some pretty catastrophic flooding as well. And so that's something that we have to begin to prepare for. As I told you, we're engaged in daily conversations with the state, with our federal partners, with the Army Corps, and we're working on getting some better plans in place for that. But also just for you all, we like I said a while ago, we have a bunch of literature here with Fire Chief we would like for you guys to pick up and start looking at, and it's for after the wildfire things to start looking at and preparing for. But also in terms of just knowing what to look for, like getting to high, the high ground, the floods do come through, talking to your neighbors or those people that might be within a floodplain, all of those types of things. And we're going to have a lot more stuff out for you all to listen to and get prepared for. But that's just something that I kind of want to throw out there as we're really looking at rebuilding and getting things back to what we're used to. But we still have stuff that in front of us that we have to be preparing for as well. Before we answer questions, I'll let you guys say as well, and then we'll answer all the questions that you guys have.
Okay, we're going to open up this garage.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. Thank you for being here today. I'll be brief. As she mentioned, there are a lot of folks that want to speak to you all today. I just wanted to reiterate what Sheriff Lopez mentioned is our incident is not over from the response portion. We're still dealing with fire, and in a lot of disasters, you deal with the response and then you move into recovery. We're actually working on both of those simultaneously. And it's not common for any disaster to work it out. So we continue to ask for your patience, and we will try and address as much as possible. This morning we met with the NEMO team, and one of the members from the NEMO team has experienced exactly what we are going through right now. He's from Colorado, and we talked a little bit about what they experienced, and it was a little. I guess an eye-opener, if you will, listening to him tell us that it's been 10 years and we're still trying to recover. So we're in this for the long haul. We just because the fire is loud this side of the mountain doesn't mean we're ready to live our normal lives. It's going to take years and years. As Sheriff mentioned, we're going to continue to put this information out. We're working right now with our PIOs that we have established to get information out on the eventual flooding. Meeting with the Corps of Engineers and their team, it's not a matter of if it's going to happen, it's a matter of when it's going to happen. It is going to happen. Yes. It's not going to be pretty. It's going to be another devastating event that we'll have to overcome as well. And we will overcome it. I want to be short and move on to Benito.
Hi, my name is Benito Romero, San Miguel County Public Works Director. And like Sheriff said as well, we still have the fire inspectors. We do have dispatch equipment out there on behalf of San Miguel County. We have a man out there trying to restore old roads and roads so that the fire personnel can get to the fire, as well as we're trying to dispatch equipment out here back into the area so that all the heavy traffic areas that were compromised by fire are getting restored so the path of travel is safer for you guys, as well as trying to figure out what we're going to do now for the monsoon season. We have a lot of stuff going on. Will be compromised due to the birds, as well. We're looking into mudslides, washed out roads, trying to figure out process for sandbagging, to flood mitigation, trying to get resources for sand, even personnel to assist in making sandbags. So, like Sheriff said, we are stretched thin, but we're working every day. A lot of us 7 days a week, whether it's meetings, labor intensive. But we're doing our best for you guys, and we promise that we continue to do the same for all of you guys.
So I don't like to be like the bearer of bad news, but I'm also the type of person that wants to be completely honest and upfront with you. So that's why we're kind of letting you know what's going on and what we've been dealing with and what we're going to continue to deal with as a community. And you know, I've said this before, but I'm very proud to serve as a sheriff here in our community because we always do stand strong and we always stand together. And that makes it easy for me to do my job, and I'll continue to do that for you. So with that, you can entertain questions.
I want to say thank you to every single one of you.
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to offer a couple resources for people that want to do some planting. Curtis Seed Company out of Clovis, New Mexico, has put together a great mix of grass seed that is appropriate for this place. Actually, they put it together for the Hermit's Peak and Cascade Fire, so it's appropriate for all of our land. So if you're in the position to buy your own seed, I know it's not free, and maybe there'll be some resources down the road to help you with that. But Curtis and Curtis Seed Company out of Clovis, New Mexico, ask for their Hermit's Peak Afghan and seed mix. And you also want to get a cover crop that's made of oats or rye, something that's going to germinate really fast to protect those other seeds while they're getting established. The other resource, somebody asked about trees. New Mexico State Forestry, they have a conservation seedling program, and you can buy trees through them, $2 a tree. You buy them in bundles, and they'll probably open up for orders probably around July. So get on the State Forestry website and order some seeds, or some seedlings. You will have to make sure you plant them at a time when there's some water. That's it. They're not going to survive. Just wanted to offer those resources.
Any other questions?
One other thing, on Wednesday, we're going to try and get something on our release sites. We're going to have a sandbag training at the Public Works office, and hopefully we can get that recorded and on our sites as well, so you can watch, and it'll teach you how to properly build sandbag barriers. We do have an order in for 100,000 if we can get them, hopefully, and we can start moving on getting some protection for some of those areas as well. Thank you. I just want to mention one more thing. So I had a conversation with a gentleman who they manufacture log homes, and I'm going to have a meeting with him this coming week. He feels really horrible about what's happening here in our area. He's from a neighboring county, but he said he was going to drastically reduce kid homes. And I'll have more information after I can meet with him. He even said he trained contractors or whoever to put these things out, because I know contractors are in everybody's busy, you know, they're especially for building. But I'll have some more information on that soon that I can share out with the community. So that's about all I have. And I think Mr. Romero, no, you good? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Stacy.
Real quick, and then FEMA, if you want to come up and give a little presentation of what you all have got going back there. Leah beat me to it, so she mentioned the tree seedling program with State Forestry. Yes. So there's a list of landowner resources right up here on this table. We've done the best we could to pull together what we knew at the time, and the tree seedling program and its phone number and email are on there. You have to order tree seedlings by, I believe it's July 27th, and then you go pick them up next spring. So the only thing is, you know, you don't know whether you're going to have water or what you may lose from floods, but you may want to just go ahead and order them. You have to have at least an acre of land. They sell them in bulk, so it's pretty cheap, but you're buying a lot of trees. Get together with your neighbors, order a whole ton of them. They have a list, and most of them are native trees to the area and bushes. Secondly, there is a seed source. It's currently from Curtis & Curtis. It's a sort of limited amount, but if you all, there's a sign-up sheet over here. If you'll put down your name, how you want us to contact you, and how many acres you have that burned, we will call you when the seeds are bagged and ready, and spread it out as many places as we can, as many people. And the last thing is, in terms of helping the commissioner, yes, call Congress, don't just call them, tweet them, write them letters, not form letters, actual letters, send it to all of your congressional reps. Representative Ledger Fernandez and Senator Lujan have a bill in Congress. They were working to get bipartisan support at the moment. I cannot find the name of it, but obviously it's the Hermit's Peak Calf Canyon Fire Assistance Act. So, support the commissioner in his efforts, support your representative and your senator in their efforts to get that bill through as quick as possible. And with that, we'll have FEMA come up. Just want to let you all know, we waited till now so you didn't rush out the door. Please be respectful. Try to stick around if you have not heard from FEMA. Unexpectedly, we've received a whole bunch of donations. Our guys are out here, like just in the last hour, from someone in Albuquerque. There's dog food, there's some clothes, there's hand soap, and then Salvation Army is going to be pulling up in about 15 or 20 minutes with a 16-foot box truck with gloves. We do have gloves out there. We have ash screens. They're going to have soap, all kinds of things. So if you or your neighbors that you know might need some of this, please take it with you. So, somebody from FEMA ready to, Laura. Oh, Laura is a woman of many talents. She works for FEMA and she does the sign language to get through some.
Thank you folks for coming out today and taking your time to listen to us. FEMA is here. Can you hear me? Okay. I usually have a big enough mouth that everybody can hear me in the north 45 miles. Can you hear me? They're saying they can't hear me. Is that better? Yes. Okay. I guess I was just standing in a dead spot. So my name is Laura Thornton. I'm with FEMA. I'm a governmental affairs specialist that works with all of the counties and the elected and state officials. FEMA is here today to help you guys. We understand that you have gone through a tragic experience, but we're here to support any way that we can. So we have DSA, our disaster survivor assistance teams in the back, who can register you if you have not registered. And I know some people are saying, why should I register? We can't help you if you don't register. And if you have insurance, of course, your insurance is gonna be your primary thing to do, but that doesn't mean you can't register with us, because if your insurance is not enough to cover, they can get kicked back to FEMA, and FEMA can assist with some. I know that the lawsuit is going on, and you're thinking, well, what if I take part in that, what's gonna happen? Well, we don't know what's gonna happen with that, and that might be a year from now, 2 years from now, before you receive assistance from that. We're here to help you guys now, to help you get started. No, we're not gonna, we don't have the money to make you go. They just don't give me a checkbook, or I just write it for you. Honestly, I'd be broke. But the point is that we are here. So we have disaster assisted teams back there. We have our housing team back there that can talk a little bit about that and what the process is and how the program is going to be. It's just getting started and discussed how, if we're going to bring in FEMA trailers, or if we're going to have to set up group sites, what we're going to have to do to be able to get the people housed. And that's part of our goal, is to make sure that you have a place to live while you're rebuilding your homes. As the state, I can't remember his name, and I'm sorry, it's bad with names. I'm good with faces, but bad with names. As he stated about the right of entry to get your property cleaned up, I encourage you to do that, simply because it is a great expense, and you want to make sure that your soil on your land is safe when you go back to it. You don't want to find out 5 years from now that the soil on your land is contaminated with, as the gentleman said earlier, with asbestos, or with lead, or arsenic, or any other hazardous material that could be left behind from the fire burning. Lots of materials in our homes are not what, yes, they're governed safe and we allow them into our country, but they're not 100% safe, and we know that because they come out of the country.
Especially after a lot of materials come up, they're gonna different materials.
Right, so three of the main things get left in the soil after a fire that burns as hot as this one has are asbestos, lead, and arsenic. When that material is hauled off, like I said, the metal will be divided, everything is recycled that can be recycled. What can't be recycled will be taken to a landfill, placed in a lined landfill for protection of not just you guys, but for everybody else. Sorry, I can't help it. So we have SBA that partners with us during disasters, and some of you, if you applied, may have gotten a letter that says you're ineligible. Please read your whole letter, find out what it says we need. I just had one resident that contacted the state, and they contacted me. Come to find out, they were missing two things that we could help them with. One, they needed to prove that their insurance declaration page was brought to us. The other one was that they couldn't prove that they had lived in the home for the last 50 years. So we have different ways that you can prove that if you don't have that proof. And these teams back here can provide you with that information, or you can ask me and I'll be happy to provide that. But SBA partners with us. They are not just for businesses. They are for homeowners. They are for renters. They can assist where we can't assist. And this is a time when we want to get out what we can out to you so that you can get started back on recovery. We want you to be able to move on. You're never going to go back to what you had before, unfortunately. I can't give you back your family photos. What I can tell you to do is if you have children, contact them. They may have those photos that you're looking for. Anyway, I'm going to turn it over to Cynthia, and she's going to talk to you just for a moment about SBA.
With a good hide.
Hi, my name is Cynthia Powell. I'm with the Small Business Administration Office of Disaster Assistance. Can you hear me? I've never been accused of being too quiet, so I apologize if I am now. The Small Business Administration offers low-interest government loans to businesses of all sizes, to private nonprofit organizations, to homeowners, and to renters who suffered losses because of the fire. We ask that you go ahead and register with FEMA first and get all the help you can from voluntary agencies, but you may be referred to SBA as a homeowner or renter when you register with FEMA. It's a step in the process. You need to, if you're referred, you need to apply to SBA. You can do that online. You can go to sba.gov/disaster, or you can go to one of the two disaster recovery centers. There's one in Las Vegas at the Old Memorial Intermediate School, and that's at 947 Legion Drive, or you can go to Mora. And Mora is at the VFW Hall in Mora, right there on 518. For homeowners, we can lend up to $200,000 to repair or replace your primary residence. For homeowners and renters, we can lend up to $40,000 to replace your personal property, and that includes cars. For businesses, we can lend up to $2 million, both for physical damage to a business, a non-farm business, and for economic losses you're sustaining because of the fires. Let's say your customer base evacuated and you have nobody for 2-3 weeks. That's hard for business to recover from.
Sorry, did you just say non-farm business?
Non-farm businesses. Farmers and ranchers should go to USDA or their farm service agency. And starting on the 7th, there will be a USDA representative at the Mora PRC. And they can help you with information there. The low rate for homeowners for this particular disaster is 1.438%. And if you currently carry a mortgage on your home or business, we may be able to refinance that mortgage at that low rate. So it's something to look into. And then for businesses, we can offer help with inventory loss, with your with your building, etc. So it's something that you really do need to look into, especially if you are referred by FEMA. So with that, if there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. One thing I wanted to say is the councilman mentioned that the legislators are trying to put forward a bill for 100% reimbursement. As Laura said, we don't know how long that will take. That may take 2 years, it may take 1 year, maybe next week, we don't know. But the best thing to do is get all the available help at this time. We can't duplicate anything that you will get from the federal government. However, if you do get an SBA loan and you do get a settlement or an insurance settlement or anything like that, that will be used to pay down or pay off your SBA loan.
So, I'm sorry, I have another question. I'm looking at this FEMA fact sheet, flood insurance. So I contacted my insurer and they're not issuing, they have a moratorium on any new coverage. So is that something FEMA's gonna address? Because that's gonna be an issue.
So FEMA has a national flood program that we work with, and they were not able to be here today to get that information. But we do, I will give you my contact information, and matter of fact, I'll just give it out, and anybody who wants to contact me, ask me questions about flooding, I will get as much information down to you. So my name is Laura Forbes, and that's LAURA.FORBES at FEMA, FEMA.DHS.gov. And I will be more than happy to send you any information that I can. But they were not able to attend today, but they're supposed to be letting us know about flood insurance, because we know that you are going to be in need of that very quickly.
Right.
So hopefully I can get answers out to those. This is Carmen Rodriguez, and she's our public information officer.
Good afternoon, my name is Carmen Rodriguez. I am the public information officer for FEMA for this disaster in New Mexico. Actually, I was the former fire administrator for the Puerto Rico State Fire Department, and I know a little bit about fires. And I thank you, all the volunteer firefighters here working, and all the firefighters that have been working very hard here. I know what it takes. You were talking about insurance. Even if you have insurance, and you already placed your case in the insurance company, they didn't answer yet. Register with FEMA, and then you're gonna have orientation from the FEMA specialist there. We can start helping you, and then when the insurance, let you know if they give you more money, FEMA's gonna let you know if you need to reimburse some money or not. If the insurance didn't give you nothing, tell us.
It's about flood insurance.
Oh, you're talking about flood insurance?
Yes, flood
okay,
insurance.
But she already answered you that. But the other people who have insurance here, and they say, I cannot register with FEMA because FEMA is not gonna help me because I have insurance, that is a rumor. FEMA may cover those things that the insurance is not going to cover in some cases. Sometimes we sign the insurance and then we don't read the little letters, the small letters at the end. And then by the time that you claim in your insurance, they're not gonna give you what you were expecting. So that's when FEMA enters, and then you may qualify for those things that the insurance is not covering. Here in Mora, Disaster Recovery Center, are representatives from the government, from the insurance commissioner, and they're gonna guide you about how to do your request for the insurance company and answer all the questions related to the insurance. It's very, very important. And to finish, FEMA it's not about insurance. FEMA also have here our people from voluntary agencies in disaster that are connected with FEMA, and they can provide all the kind of assistance to you. Let us know what is your situation in particular. Let us know if you need a temporary home to stay. Let us know if you need rental assistance. Let us know if you need to stay in a hotel. If you already pay hotel or rental temporarily because you were obliged to evacuate for your safety and you spend some money, give us the receipts. You will be able to get reimbursed with that money with FEMA. Don't listen to rumors. Listen to FEMA what we need to tell you. So we are here to help you, all of us, and thank you very much for your attention. And I wish for all of you a very prompt recovery. Thank you very much.
I have one more person, and she is from our volunteer agency group that is, we call them our VAL. They work with all the local volunteer agencies, and they provide assistance for those who may need it that we are not able to at this time.
I know you'll hear me. Everyone can hear me? My name is Dawn Weaver, and I'm a voluntary agency liaison, also known as a VAL. That you'll probably hear that often. And what we do when we hit the ground is we start looking for the people doing the work. All of your nonprofits and non-government offices, your organizations, your faith-based, all those people that are already out there helping, your community foundations. And then as we go along in your recovery, we start to try and bring all those folks under one umbrella, because we don't want folks duplicating effort or duplicating funds. There's a lot of gas cards and a lot of hotel vouchers, and I know a lot of you that have suffered a loss are standing there going, is that person even around here? So we help those agencies develop those databases, and we put them together under an unmet needs table. So what happens when you settle with your insurance, you got your FEMA grant, your Aunt Beth will send you $10,000 to assist you with your rebuild, and you're still short, then what happens? So we put those national organizations together, your community foundations, and we try and find that money to help assist you in that rebuild. Now there is a case management process that will happen to make sure that you used your money towards the recovery, that you actually have a loss, and that there is no other way that you will be able to rebuild. This is not the FEMA show. It is a community-based organization. Disasters, they start locally and they end locally. When everyone's gone, right, who's still standing? Your long-term recovery group. So we're working in the counties of San Miguel and Mora, myself and my partner Mary Alice, they're in the back. And we're getting ready to set up a meeting to get all those folks together and get that stand up while you guys are going still through this immediate recovery stage. We'll be working in the background to try and stand that. I do want to say something on the ineligible appeal. You can continue to do that over and over again. You don't have to take note. An ineligible letter just means a request for more information. Because you want to try and get as much of that government money, right, before you start dipping into your pocket. Most of the time what it is simply your insurance. They see you have insurance and you just need to give them that insurance information so they can get you with that again. All right, any questions about loss recovery grants? No? All right, great. But I have to add one thing. I'm sorry. In 2003, I was sitting right where you are, in San Diego. That's when the Granddaddies and Fire started in 2003, when all this started happening. And I was sitting right where you guys are at, going, what are we going to do? And I hit the ground with my community and did exactly what I'm doing for FEMA now. So I have a heart, I'm very well aware of what it takes to get a community together where it is now. Thank you. And one more thing, and that is, when we're calling you, when FEMA is calling you, we are probably going to come up as a number 1, you don't recognize, or 2, no caller ID. Please answer your phone. We are doing call-outs for those individuals who have already registered. They are doing call-outs to find out what their housing situations are and how we're going to be able to assist. So please answer your phones. If you get a message, please call back to the hotline and give us that information so that we know what's going on. I don't know where you're staying at, if you're staying with family or if you're staying at a hotel and you're paying out. We don't know that, and if you don't tell us that, we can't help you. All right?
That's better than making sad.
All right, guys. Also, now I have a couple of super important announcements. Number 1, some wonderful people in the community donated and also baked lots of delicious cookies. Don't leave us fire folks to eat all those cookies. Please take them with you. Come over here and eat stuff. And Salvation Army is here. We got donations from Albuquerque. This is when you can call all your folks, text your buddies over in Mora, wherever, Francis Canyon, and tell them we got all kinds of stuff here. And the fire station is not really set up to be a central donation point, so really hope people will take what you need, share it with your neighbors, get it to families that you know couldn't make it today, but you know what they need. And we appreciate all of you being here. There's time for questions. Folks are hanging out. Is there any questions for any of the officials still here?
Don't be shy.
Okay. So the county officials will be here, and of course FEMA, Red Cross. We have some volunteer crews down here, and I'm Institute. Please feel free to wander around, see what you need, sign up for seeds, and take cookies with you. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you to all of the firefighters. I don't know how many servants.
This is our chief right here. And he's the guy who worked 30 hours straight helping save that gas station and passed around the corner here.
All right, everyone, as she said, we've got a lot of supplies here. There's toiletries, there's cleaning supplies, soap, sanitation products. There's a lot of it, and we don't have a good place to store it all. We want to make sure it gets to the people that need it. So take a look around. There's still unloading stuff. We're not sure exactly what we're getting, but we're getting a lot. Thank you, everyone, for coming. I appreciate it.
I was like, where is this?